Has ordered the Fulton County District Attorney's Office to turn over all the property they seized from Young Thug. The rapper, whose real name is Jeffrey Williams, pleaded guilty to gang, drug, and gun charges. Fox 5's Angelique Proctor has followed this latest development and has the story.
It is happening because the Fulton County District Attorney's Office missed a critical deadline to turn a transcript in. Many local attorneys call it another misstep by this very high-profile office. Let's go to the courtroom. We are talking about luxury items that Young Thug owned and the government seized by civil forfeiture. More than $1 million in things like Lamborghinis, Porsches, Mercedes-Benzes, personalized necklaces, and $150,000 in cold cash. Well, according to attorneys we talked to, there are a lot of rules the government must follow when taking property, and the DA's office simply missed a critical deadline.
That's what you're getting at. He took a plea deal, so why don't they get to keep it? That's not the issue. The issue is you had to have a hearing and prove the connection of this property to criminal activity within a certain amount of time, and you didn't do that.
That office absolutely fumbled this and through disorganization, and I guess they could blame focusing on the criminal matter that took longer to prosecute than any other criminal case in the state of Georgia. Yes, they missed this deadline, and the taxpayers should be deeply upset.
I agree. Welcome to the video, everyone. This is Justin Paul, and I'm doing just a reaction here to new news that that the DA's office, they have to return property and money that was seized from Young Thug during this whole criminal trial that they went through, this whole RICO case that they went through. And they apparently missed a deadline as far as to have a hearing to say how this property was tied into the charges that were brought against Young Thug. And they dropped the ball again. And again, this is all on taxpayers' dime, y'all. So yeah, taxpayers should definitely be upset with this whole situation. One of the longest cases that they have ever had in Georgia history, and at the end of the day, really didn't produce much of nothing. And Young Thug is, of course, free at this moment. Still on probation, but he's currently able to go out and earn a living. And I mean, listen to the items: Lamborghinis, Porsches, Mercedes-Benzes, $150K in cold cash. Properties and stuff. Yeah, he wants that stuff back. He forfeited that stuff, civil forfeiture, and he wants his stuff back. So, if they missed key deadlines, if they couldn't tie that stuff in with this whole case, he should definitely get his items back. That's just my belief. If I was in his position, I would want my items back as well. He worked hard to get those items. Whether you believe it or not, he still had to go and earn the money to be able to get these items. So just for those items to be in police possession somewhere just sitting, and God knows what will be done with the cash, but no, that's his property. He should get it back. And I would feel that way whether it was Young Thug or any Joe Smo or any person. They if things or procedures are put into place and those procedures aren't followed, then the property should be returned to the rightful owner. Just simple as that. But and then as far as Young Thug, this is definitely a victory for him to get his stuff back. And my whole thing with him is you have to take advantage of like your name being in the news and you having this attention as far as being released, man. If you're a musician, you're a rapper, and your job is to make music, and to try to get yourself back to a position of where you whereas when you went into jail. You have to go in that studio and really take it serious, try to put together a cohesive project, and just try to be maybe a little bit more a little bit more aware and a little bit more focused on the type of music that you're making, and really give people something that they want to listen to repeatedly over and over again. That's my whole thing. You came out, you did songs saying how certain individuals are rats and things like that. So got all that off your chest. And as a lot of people were saying, like DJ Academics, when these artists do certain interviews, it sometimes overshadows their music because they'll reveal more in those interviews than they will in their actual music. And that's the whole thing as far as making music that has, some context to it, like some music that has some content in it that people can listen to and say, man, either I relate or now I understand this artist a bit more, because they put a different element into their music. They put a little bit more detail, a little bit more creativity into the music. So, do I think he still has a chance to, drop something that, gets everybody back on his wave, everybody back listening to him? Yeah, I do. But I also feel like Gunna was definitely a huge aspect to, like him creatively and musically, for a lot of those guys in Atlanta. I feel like Gunna was definitely a huge key because, Gunna, he he definitely has developed into, a real great artist. He knows how to pick beats. He has one of the best producers in Atlanta on his team. Um, and I just feel like, when that whole thing was working together, they made some real good music together. And I do feel like, a lot of people who don't, deal with Gunna anymore, I've seen their music careers, definitely take a little step back because, like I said, Gunna was a definitely key piece. Even if you just have one track with Gunna on your project, a lot of times that's gonna be the track that people gravitate to. And even if people feel whatever kind of way about Gunna, Gunna's still able to come out and have hot songs that he has released since he's been out, and go on tours and stuff like that. All the important aspect as far as being an artist. What happens in the streets is definitely, something that's going to be totally different than how the world looks at you as an artist. And hopefully Gunna is a true example of that. Even with all the people saying Gunna's a snitch, Gunna's a rat, and all that XYZ, Gunna's streams have continued to climb. Gunna is continued to drop music that impresses people to the point where they restream it, re-listen to it. He gets playlisted and all that type of stuff. Let me just take a look right now. I'm gonna look at the Apple. I'm gonna look at one of the rap playlists at this current moment. Hip hop rap life. So this is the main one of the main um playlists here on Apple. Just Say That by Gunna is the third song. After Little Uzi Vert and FDO by Pooh Shiesty. Gunna is the fifth song with Sock Passe. Gunna's the sixth song on a track with Offset and Gunna. Um, Gunna is, let's see, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's the ninth song with Endless. And then they still have songs on here from like Metro and Future's album, um, the Future album what he did with Southside, um, Gunna's on here again with Offset at My Purist, and I'm just scrolling through this playlist here. Let's see. And even I see some 21, I see some Little Baby, you know. But yeah, for the most part, Gunna's at Gunna's at the very top. All his stuff is all throughout the playlist. And I'm literally looking for it's 96 songs on here. 96 songs on this playlist. WGFT with Gunna and Burna Boy is on here. But I'm looking through the playlist and I'm trying to find Young Thug. Okay, Walk Down with 21 Savage. I do see that on here. But you got a person with damn near 10 songs on this playlist, and you able to get one spot, which is great. You got one spot, but like I said, it really shows who is shit pretty much the king of Atlanta. You know, it's Gunna musically. He may not be the king in the streets and all this and that, but these are artists. These are hip hop artists. So the thing is, okay, who's making the most music that's influential that people are streaming and listening to consistently? And or who does these editors feel like is making the hottest music? And Gunna's name is on there multiple times. So we'll see, if what happens as far as musically, but definitely, a great victory for Young Thug to get his to be able to get his possessions back. Cause man, who wants to lose a Lambo and who wants to lose a Porsche or a Benz? Just to have a Benz just out there sitting or potentially auctioned off. Like, nah, man. So great win for Young Thug, and hopefully he's able to get his motivation back, going to the studio and drop a banger. So we'll see. But again, I'm gonna go ahead and close out. If you like my content, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. This is Justin Paul. Peace.